Hello, hello. Hi, everybody. Oh, I'm muted. Can you guys hear me?
We can hear you.
All right, now we're live. Here we go. All right, we have a really fun community AMA today. A little curveball, which I think is going to, be less of a curveball in the future and more of a common thing. We have a lot of different people from the Scale community here talking. Lots of builders, people that are, typically it's a lot of people from the core team, but we mixed it up today. We want to do more of this, and we thought, is there a better time than the end of the year community AMA? All right. Oh, I saw Flensman. Hello. We got our peeps here. Okay, we're seeing the notifications pop up on screen. But so, hey, thank you first and foremost for all of you that submitted questions. I think a lot of you, submitted some thoughtful questions about the Scale project, about the industry. Not very often, I get to talk to this group of people together. I talk to all of them a lot, but not usually in a group. So it's going to be a fun chat. Let's kick things off first. For those of you that don't know me, I think we have a lot of new people here today too, is what I gathered. My name is Jack O'Holler, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of SKALE Labs. SKALE Labs is the core team behind the SKALE Network. SKALE Network, however, is completely decentralized. The SKALE core team, we don't run a single node. All the code's open source, and it's an open decentralized project. And so open decentralized projects are only as strong as the communities that are around them. Core teams are really critical to try to help get things started, but things don't really take off unless a lot of amazing people come together. And we have a nice collection of some amazing people that spend a lot of time working on SKALE today. So let's do some intros. I'll go. I don't know if you guys are seeing the same, celebrity squares I am, but let's go to Fabio.
Hey everyone, my name is Fabio. I'm representing the foundation, Node Foundation, which is foundation behind SKALE, also as a part of SKALE Labs team on different topics, being it mostly on the business side. So keep it short, again, part of the SKALE Foundation, and happy to be here, joining the whole crew here.
Thank you, Fabio. Fabio hails from Switzerland. We got a nice global setup here today. So, Topper.
Hi, I'm Topper from Crypto Coliseum, which is a gladiator battle strategy game and sort of ecosystem of fun with stories and strategy all revolving around gladiator battles. We are launching over time on the SKALE Network. We got started back in July, and we have a mini game running now, and we have a bunch more stuff coming.
Awesome. Thanks, Topper. All right. We're gonna keep it going here clockwise. Sawyer.
Hey everybody. I'm Sawyer. I think many of you probably know me more so as the Great Axios throughout the Twitter spheres and the Discords, etc. Very fortunate to be here today. Thank you so much for having me. Very involved with the Calypso NFT Hub, which is one of the SKALE chains currently live on mainnet that helps support and be a home to many NFT-related projects. Additionally, I am the creator and supporter of many different community SKALE tools, looking to help other projects continue to build and succeed on SKALE.
Awesome. Thank you. And by the way, Topper and Sawyer, talk into the mic a little more next time you're up, just for get audio a little more clear. Okay. Chris, hello. Please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone. So yeah, I'm Chris from Chain Nerd Gaming. I am actually originally an IT guy by trade, but I've been involved in the blockchain space for, well, March will be my 10-year anniversary. So I've worked with various projects during that time, really got to see the space grow up. But right now with Chain Nerd Gaming, my mission is really to kind of bridge the gap between Web3 gaming and traditional gaming. So that is my aim.
Awesome. So a lot of you might know Chris. Chris was really instrumental at Block Brawlers and still is supporting the Block Brawlers project. But he is spreading his wings, and he's going to be, really helping cultivate community and driving, engagement and with the gamers of the world. He knows gaming super well, and he's going to be, partnering with people like Topper and other people in the space to, be online and get the heartbeat going, get the pulse going. So
we'll be having lots of fun.
Yeah, awesome. All right, so hey, let's before we do anything, before we talk about next year, I just want to take a second to just talk about this year. I feel like there were some amazing milestones made in the Scale Network in the last year, and it was a crazy year, this tumultuous, insane time where if you're a builder, you kind of feel like, you're like just being thrown around all over the place. Like you're like, oh, you make this progress, and all of a sudden, some billionaire over leverages and loses a lot of people money and it throws things the other direction. And it's a lot of curveballs this year. But when you work in blockchain and when you are a builder, you kind of expect that. I just want to take a minute, and we're just to talk to the team here. Like, I feel like a lot of amazing progress happened, one within all of your projects, but also in the Scale ecosystem. A year ago, we were on Scale V1, and we were finding, we were realizing how difficult it was to upgrade to Scale V2, and that there's a decision made for V2 to be kind of a separate implementation. And it wasn't, you go look at the data, we had hardly, the amount of usage just was sparse last June when V2 like really in earnest kicked into gear. I think it rolled out in May. It was live at the end of April, but it took 2 months to really like get its footing. And then, hey, we had 13 million transactions last month almost on chain. And, a lot of things came together. Calypso, Europa, Metaport widget, Brawl chain, Roam chain, lots of things came together. But just would love to hear kind of like look from all of you, like any kind of pertinent thoughts about the achievements the community made around Scale. Anybody want to go first?
I can.
All right, Sawyer, let's talk, man. Hear it.
Hopefully everybody can hear me better this time. I think a key thing for me, especially as one of the people, that has been behind in pushing for Calypso to go live and, kind of moving forward into the latter half of this year, just the ability for kind of not just V2 Scale to be live, but the ability for chains to actually communicate from a technological standpoint has been instrumental in the setup and the way that we can actually design the ecosystem. So Calypso as a community project is not run by any one individual. It's designed as a utility for everybody on Scale to have another place to utilize compute and storage for NFTs and resources. And with the ability to move tokens and messages between Scale chains and have multiple locations, it's just really opened up the door to, I think, something that no other network can really match in terms of how dynamic and kind of strong an ecosystem can become purely based on just NFTs and kind of those types of projects.
It's interesting because I feel like this at Scale, our greatest strength has also been one of the greatest challenges. We have so much capacity across all these different chains, but then getting it all to work and sync together just took a while. And that's really, that was the goal of the V2 upgrade, is to make that happen. And then all the work happening with Metaport and the other things that Sawyer, you as the great Axios and a lot of other people, the Ruby team, a lot of other people in the ecosystem have, I think, NF Trade did a lot as well in terms of helping with Metaport UX that just launched. If you tried the first couple days to buy, you probably saw that the UX was broken. And that was, there's just, when you have 6 different entities working together at a decentralized project, sometimes you have those hiccups. But now, if you haven't tried it, go try it now. Go check it out. It's like so much cleaner and smoother. But Topper, what are your thoughts on the last year?
Sorry, I was also trying to work on my mic. How is it now?
Oh yeah, you two are both just like, professional sound quality.
All right. I was thinking back before this call, like how kind of whirlwind a year it's been, and how we were on Polygon a year ago, and had just started talking to you, I think in April or May of this year, and really just got started building on Scale in July, and just like all the stuff that's changed since then is pretty amazing. Like both from our project standpoint, we've just released a lot of stuff just looking back, and then having Scale launch NF Trade and stuff like that. It's been a super cool year for the technology side. And I was on a Spaces earlier, and she said, like, how does the bear market change your development trajectory? And I was like, well, it's got a lot of bad associated with it, obviously, but also it kind of like forces you to focus on the sort of user experiences and how are you going to reconnect with real people and not just like NFT money that's flowing around. So it's been, I don't know that we would have worked as hard to make onboarding as easy and take the next steps that we're going to take in a different market. So it's been interesting.
Topper, I want to give you a shout out there. So if you haven't tried Delph's Table, you'll go and play and you won't even know you're on Scale, which, our goal at Scale was to build something that, that helped crypto scale in a way that was behind the scenes. And, and it's counterintuitive for crypto, because in crypto, infrastructure is in your face and you need to have this token in order to use that infrastructure. But last time, you took an Uber or Lyft, do you know if they were using Google Cloud or AWS? You don't. And that's because there's a really good user experience. And that's even just the low hanging fruit. But I felt like what you did with Delph's Table, being able to be on the Ethereum mainnet, literally connect and then do that handshake, and the user, free to play, they're up and running and playing immediately. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, I feel like we still have a lot to do, and I think the next step is actually to make you think you're not even using blockchain, to allow people just to kind of sign in, whether it was Google or whatever, or the wallet if they want to, right? Or start with one and then move to the next. I think that's kind of the next step for us. I think Reddit showed the power of using different words than we all use in our bubble, and so kind of want to start moving in that direction.
Yeah, I'm excited about what, I don't know, later we'll be talking a little bit about next year, and I don't know how much you're ready to divulge, but I know you're working on cool stuff, and you're going to be one of the people that helps bring in the next 50 million fresh users to crypto. So it's exciting. Okay, all right. Chris, love to hear your thoughts on the last year.
Yeah, so honestly, I mean, I kind of came to Scale in this past year and learned of the benefits primarily through building and working on the Block Brawlers game project. But for me, as a gamer, I've been gaming since I was a child, like many of you may have, many viewers may have as well. For me, spending a lot of time in the blockchain gaming space, fees have always been a problem. And, I don't want to call out any specific blockchains, but it really makes it unmanageable. And to kind of piggyback off of what Topper said, really making it a seamless experience is kind of what the next step is. I think Scale's technology enables that. So that's why I'm excited to support it. But really the fees are just the fees on Scale, which are non-existent, is a huge selling point for me as a gamer and a blockchain gamer. I don't know if you guys knew, something like, I think in March of 2022, something like 52% of every single blockchain transaction was actually a gaming transaction. So even though people may think this space is kind of growing up slowly, I think Scale's technology kind of enables these games to really do what we want to do and kind of start bringing the cream of the crop to the forefront here. So people aren't necessarily knowing, as has been said before, they don't necessarily know they're playing a blockchain game at first. They're just playing an awesome game that they're having a lot of fun with, and kind of learning of those other benefits later. But
yeah, it's like, let's talk about the benefits rather than the technology, right? I think that's the next step here.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, so Fabio, any thoughts on from foundation perspective?
Yeah, I mean, from the foundation perspective, nothing has changed. Foundation is here to support the network. Obviously, that's the main goal of foundation. Everyone who knows more about Scale knows how the setup is, also like with the treasury of the foundation and the tokens which are allocated to the foundation to support the network. They know that we are here foundation is here, that SKALE is here to support all the developers, and compared, I think, to other infrastructure projects with a unique setup. Also, we focus on, like, with all the grants. I think we talk about that later, or we might talk about that later as well. But given SKALE's architecture, we don't need to just spend money on projects building on SKALE, like just paying them to build on SKALE, because automatically, sooner or later, they'll see the benefit of actually deploying their application on SKALE and not on other infrastructures, especially if you have like high throughput game. And I think that's on the game side, but also gaming brought a lot of, like, compared to last year, this year, with games going live, many new community members joined the network, which is amazing to see. And now actually people can use it. It's not just that people talk about SKALE; they can actually use it. And I think to bring users to a new network and add them to the community and involve them, gaming is probably one of the best solution and the easiest way to get more traction.
Yeah, and Fabio, I'm going to help you be, brag a little bit here. I'm going to tee you up, give you some softballs. But I mean, the foundation gave what, over 60 grants this last year? Is that correct?
Yeah, around 60 grants. So as you can imagine, some of them, they're already live. Some are still in testnet or testing, still on SKALE. But community can be, it's exciting. Let's say next quarter. Next quarter is going to be super excited. Some major projects and applications going live, some more prestigious one as well. And obviously, again, given we have 60 plus projects which have signed like agreements, it's not just like having talked to them. I mean, we were talking to a lot more than just the 60 we've have agreements in place, but everything takes time, obviously, and they need to they just started building, or they've already deployed on testnet, but the community itself, they can't see that yet. But yeah, I think everyone can be excited, and it's been an exciting year, and with more transactions from June, when like SKALE V2 went live, till now, more and more applications get aware or are becoming aware of SKALE and what actually SKALE can do for them, and how we can help, like the architecture can help each and every application.
Yeah, there's literally been, I think calling that out, there's literally been over 30 million transactions since June.
Yep.
Which, if you look at a lot of these kind of like L1 ghost chains, they may have a lot of blocks, but not a lot of transactions. So anyways, it's just, been awesome to see that, but still just, even in the last year, 60 new grants signed, and many, a lot of those, big percentage of those haven't gone live yet. So Fabio, the other thing I want to call out that the foundation and tee you up is the things the foundation didn't do. Because I know the foundation made some good decisions, for example, not to work with FTX and Alameda and Genesis and BlockFi.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, fully agree. So foundation side, I think it's good that some of the members have financial background. They were rather conservative, or the foundation was rather conservative when it comes to investments in general, or like taking care of the treasury. And therefore, given that conservative approach, we haven't been involved in any of those kind of debacles happening right now. So the foundation didn't lose any money on that, neither obviously then with FTX and all those tokens. So we never did any deals with those companies, which is great for us now, obviously, because we're aware of other projects which got hit quite hard. And on that perspective, they might get their funds back in 10 years. And lucky us, we don't even need to wait, because we've never been involved with all those.
Yeah, awesome. Well, excellent work. Keep up the good work over there. Fabio's spent lots of time in Liechtenstein and with the foundation, and lives in Switzerland. So okay, so let's go on to another question here. So the question about, I think this is a gaming question, and we're going to talk a little bit about gaming before we go elsewhere. But what is the next phase of blockchain gaming? Where is gaming going in 2023? I think 2022 and 2021, right? We really saw this play to earn gaming come to life, but it still required, and I think there's a lot of NFT integration. Like NFTs really had, were like a power charge for gaming. We still saw gaming though happening in, certain like closed circles, not in like as many broader circles as we typically want, right, for mass adoption. And also I think UX improved, but there's still a lot of improvement, right, that needs to happen. So kind of open question for this group: where do you see the next steps in evolution in blockchain gaming over the next year?
I'll start, I guess. I think we're going to see a pretty big explosion of content, which is good. There's been some games that have been building for a couple of years. They'll start to come out, and we'll see how that's working. What I've been kind of seeing is a sort of a confluence of technologies, which I'll try to make a little less nerdy, but basically the browser is getting much better and and can start to handle sort of console level graphics, and and also like some user re-engagement stuff that was missing from games before. And so I think in 2023, we're going to start to see browser games getting much better. And you combine that with the Web3 sort of payment rails, and you have this really nice experience where you can bypass app stores and offer these like really cool, like deep linking experiences, like, Topper's on this particular world in this like massive place, and you can deep link right into it. The person can jump right in. They don't have to wait to like download a 6 GB game, that kind of stuff. And I think that's going to be really fun in 2023. And then I think this is the year where the industry starts to figure out like, hey, we actually need game builders to do this stuff and produce good content. And I think that's going to be exciting too.
Yeah, I agree. So Topper, can you also talk a little bit about the like kind of the onboarding component? So if you have a browser-based game, kind of makes you one step closer instantly to having a wallet, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's one thing that's really interesting, I think, is that sort of outside of the Web3 world, there's something called FIDO Alliance, which is doing these things called passkeys. This is kind of boring, nerdy stuff, but Android's had this in the device for a while, but iPhone has not. But it's like cross-device login that you can use your biometrics to get into websites. What's really interesting there is that everyone now is going to have private public key pairs in their devices. So it's really going to like, and in a good like abstracted way where they're not even realizing it, but it lets you do things like sign stuff in the browser with a key that's going to be like handled by Apple or handled by Microsoft or handled by Google. I think that's really interesting, and is sort of like an unexplored area where we could start to get people on to, especially chains like Scale, where you don't care too much about having a larger transaction to verify those signatures. And you can just let people actually have a real wallet in their phone using their thumb or face. I think that's really interesting. That's going to happen actually it just happened. It's already available.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, that is, those are the pieces in the innovations that will just, I think, take things to the next level. Because I think a lot of people operate on this. Hey, I use MetaMask, but I have a bunch of value in my, my ledger, my hardware wallet, or I have a bunch of value on an exchange, which I think a lot of people learn not to do that. But they still need better self-custody solutions. But being able to connect those custody solutions to the browser without moving everything into like the hot wallet on MetaMask, I think having that kind of 2FA piece that's like seamless and integrated, that doesn't require all the other steps, will really bring more, I think, like TAM in terms of value to browser games.
Yeah, and using that particular tech, it's separated per site too, right? So you can't like go to a scam site and get your apes stolen if you're using that kind of a wallet. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's also just kind of an interesting benefit for users.
Awesome. Sawyer, I know you're working a lot in that kind of onboarding process and everything you're doing with Calypso. And by the way, can you give another, like, just to give the elevator summary of what Calypso is, in case we have we almost always have new people joining the AMAs, and so be good for people to hear about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess the quick elevator pitch for Calypso is it is a Ethereum-based NFT chain, which is a scale chain. So what that means is fully compatible with Solidity and all the nerdy, I'll use Topper's word, they're nerdy technological stuff. So if you're a developer on one of the many EVM-based chains or Ethereum-based chains in this industry, you can quickly kind of get moving on Scale. But it also has all the power of a scale chain because it's just a scale chain. So, gasless fees or valueless gas, however you want to phrase that, very fast finality. And it's also compatible and connected to a variety of other scale chains. So I call it the home of NFTs. It's a little corny, but it's just an easy way to kind of think about it. Whether you're, for example, Topper has, a bunch of NFTs on his chain. I won't say anything specific because we haven't actually talked about this too much, but maybe at some point next year you'll be able to take those NFTs from Delph's table and utilize NF Trade as a secondary marketplace. Or he just did some those awesome masks as part of the NF Trade launch, and maybe those will wind up going back to his chain. So it's just kind of like I mentioned earlier, it's just a resource for the greater Scale community. Whether you're a consumer and you want to trade or swap NFTs, or if you're a developer and you're building a high throughput game, you can actually offload some of your compute to a chain where there's less transactions happening, and you're not slowing your users down when they're trying to buy, sell, trade NFTs. So it's kind of a multi-purpose chain with the broader concept being NFTs. How can we help support NFT projects or games?
Awesome.
Yeah, and then I guess just following up on that in terms of the broader kind of just onboarding experience. There's a lot of interesting, once again, nerdy discussion there that I won't dive too deep into as to onboarding to Calypso. But I think just to quickly kind of high level that, the goal for myself and the others that are helping to push the Calypso NFT hub forward into the next year, the goal is to not necessarily just push Calypso, but push Calypso as a piece to other projects. As a user, the easiest way to onboard to Calypso is if you don't even know that you're using Calypso. A game like Topper's, Crypto Coliseum, or Block Brawler is just magically using Calypso under the hood, and then for their NFTs. And then when it's time to go, once again, utilize them on the secondary market or pick up on maybe some other NFT utilities, they're already available on Calypso, or they can quickly be transferred via AMA, the interchain messaging agent, to Calypso, and they're available. So I think a huge part of the onboarding will just be utilizing it as a resource as opposed to getting there in the first place.
Awesome. Great. Thanks, Sawyer. So let's keep moving forward. Chris, thoughts on gaming 2023? What's coming?
Well, I mean, what I think is coming and what I'd like to see might be two different things, but I think they're pretty well aligned. I kind of want to speak to the onboarding stuff. I like the concept, and I think we'll see a lot more games kind of going this direction. But a little bit what we talked about earlier, essentially making games really playable. There's kind of a balance or a delicate balance going on right now between play and earn when it comes to Web3 gaming. I think many projects are kind of focused on the earn portion. I think 2023 is going to bring a lot more of the play experience. So really gaming centric, how the game's built. It's playable. It's something people want to come back to. And then, like I said, I think the magic or the thing that I would really like to see is that onboarding experience improve. I've worked with some projects in the past that have actually tried to do this, just never quite hit the goal. But essentially making a really great game that people want to play, and that kind of anybody on the internet can come to, start playing, and they may not even realize it's a blockchain game. And that's not to be deceptive about how it's marketed, but not making it the forefront, essentially having that technology in the background. You're playing something, you're earning, you're earning, but you don't know it. You're having a great time. And then at some point you get that tap on the shoulder and say, hey, guess what? You've earned all these assets, in a few clicks, you can claim them. You actually own them, and they're tradable. They may have some sort of financial value depending on the game. That type of thing really, I think, is what I'd like to see coming in 2023. I think we'll see more of it. Another interesting concept, which I don't know how many are building this out, but I really like the idea of kind of asset interoperability. Think of it this way, kind of like a weighted NFT value. Say you know, for instance, in block brawlers, and this isn't a specific, I'm not saying that that's coming to block brawlers, but say you earned a legendary sword in a game, and that is actually backed by a token that has some sort of weight to it. Now you could take that to another game and it would be worth, you know, a relatively high level starship in another game. It's a very strange concept. I don't know how many games are actually doing it now, but that's kind of on my wish list for 2023 to see those type of partnerships and that interoperability there.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a second, because you know, one thing I've found is like one of the greatest misconceptions of the value of blockchain gaming, or the value of blockchains and gaming, is interoperability of assets. And I've had a lot of, like, I was on a call with some VCs the other day, and they're saying, well, you know, I don't think it's really valuable for people. People don't want to go take a sword from one game and then go use it in another game. That's just not going to happen. And I was like, well, you're probably right. If it doesn't happen today, could it happen in blockchain? Yeah, but that's not the point of blockchain. The point is that people could get liquidity from the sword and then easily go over and buy the sword from the other game if they wanted to. And you know, it just makes buying, selling easier. And at the end of the day, you own it, not someone else. And guess what? The game publisher, the game designer, the game creator, whomever it is still going to get a royalty cut if it's in the smart contract, whether that happens in your marketplace or on OpenSea or on NF Trade or somewhere else on Calypso or anywhere. There's just kind of your storefront becomes everywhere because your value will still be passed back to you through smart contracts. And, you know, yeah, does somebody want to take a shield from one game into another game? You know, well, yeah, that's not really a blockchain problem. It's more about, you know, two, you know, different games having a similar system, right? Or like an agreement that they're going to like let their databases talk and make things do things. And, you know, it can happen on blockchain or not, but it's, for some reason, people's heads get tied to that as the core value prop for blockchain. But I think it's, to me, it's like fifth or sixth or eighth on the list. But what did all of you think?
So I have strong feelings about that. So I actually think that interoperability is very important, but it's often taken out of context. Where I think it's like one of the cool things about blockchain is sort of the primary thing is this trust machine, right? Where like distrustful parties can work together, and that's sort of the core experience of what a blockchain is supposed to be. And interoperability of game items lets like individual game studios come together and like figure out how to make new games that are going to have these new items that work together. So it's not about necessarily taking your sword to the starship, but it's about like if people come to Crypto Coliseum and want to build an alternative game using our lore and our items and stuff like that, they can, and that's awesome. Or if we want to work together with, you know, 7 other small studios and build some sort of ecosystem together. Mm-hmm. I'll also say that Scottie Pippen is releasing this like new digital sneaker line. It's going to do awesome, right? Like it's going to blow everybody's mind how much money he raises from that thing. And one of the core things that they talk about is that it's going to work in Fortnite. It's going to work in Grand Theft Auto. It's going to work in all these things because it's, in his words, fucking dope sneakers, right? And I think like that's one of his core value propositions is that there's like this cosmetic is going to work across all these places that people congregate. And so that's already like Web 2, right? And so in Web 3, we could do like even better with like actual like gameplay items and stuff like that too.
Yeah. Fabio, maybe talk a little bit about what Renfter's doing, right? Because they are helping, I think, to Chris's point, like there can be a lot of value if you have somebody, like let's say you weren't using your sword, you can actually rent it to somebody else, make money on it, and then take that money and go buy a sword or rent, you know, a shield or, you know, shoes somewhere else. And you're like basically like hopping around, but you don't necessarily have to take the asset, but you still kind of ownership and get like, you know, commercial value while you're not using it with Renfter.
Yeah, 100%. And obviously that comes along with the bigger the community is, like the more games and NFT projects are on Scale, the more possibilities are there, right? So with Renfter, they can allow users from on different games then to rent out their, let's say, sword, and rent another one on a spaceship for another game. So yeah, that's super cool. Obviously, again, there need to be an ecosystem of games, and I mean that's coming. So it's already here, but it's growing.
Yeah. So and are they live yet with their implementation on Scale, or are they waiting to push that?
They're still on testnet.
Okay.
They're waiting, yeah, but they'll be coming.
Okay, great, cool. All right, Fabio, did you have any last thoughts to share on this before we move on?
I think I'll leave that. The gaming experts have spoken. So yeah.
So hey, let's talk a little bit about on-chain gaming. So this, it's kind of funny to me that this is now this like hot topic. And I remember, I think I was at DevCon in Osaka, and I was speaking, and I was saying, to me, there's like 3 levels of on-chain gaming. There's or blockchain gaming. There's regular gaming where you're just playing Fortnite or something, and somebody, you're just a centralized system, and then someone is able at some point to like connect that user ID to buy something that's actually on a blockchain. And there's like not really much blockchain interoperability, but they're basically saying this user ID owns this thing, and they have this custodial solution. And then you have this like other area where it's like a lot of stuff is just Web2 gaming. Those are really just Oracle inputs, but the users actually are there with self-custody. They're interacting, they're earning things, they're winning things, but it's still just 98% a Web2 game that just lets people interact more. And then you have on-chain gaming and like all the things that we see in Crypto Coliseum and other areas where a lot of the block brawlers, like where literally the logic of the game is on chain, and whether you're in or logic from Web2 oracles is feeding components, not just feeding who wins. And so basically adding more trustlessness on of the game on chain in terms of the gameplay. And it's I'm seeing like amongst the VCs I've talked to, it's like a hot category, but it's something I think that all of us have been talking about for a long time. But I see it being like this next, like, ooh, on-chain gaming. Before it was play-to-earn gaming. And, these are all things we've been doing forever, but they just always get a new buzzword and get more energy. But what does everyone think about on-chain gaming? Topper, I'm going to go with you first because you look like you.
Well, I guess my question is, we have a complicated relationship with on-chain parts of it, I guess. We've gone from like being fully on-chain to moving some off-chain with the next release of Delph's Table, we're actually moving more off-chain to more centralized because it's real time. And so the latency really matters. Now, I come from building a layer 1 and I'm really interested in like consensus problems. And so what I want to do is make it so that the users are signing transactions, and that's going through a centralized server, but then settling to the blockchain, so that you don't care about the 4-second latency. But what I think is really cool is having history of gameplay available on chain, because I think it's just a really good primitive for sort of modders or like other people who are going to build in the ecosystem to come in and say like, maybe we want to only let people that have played 1,000 games join this particular cool new experience. Or maybe I want to build a fishing game, but I want it to be really exclusive and only people who have, are members of this clan who have, defeated this guy or whatever. And so like just having that sort of history available on chain, I think is really important. And so it breaks my heart a little bit that we're moving a little more away to the centralized server, but we'll get back to doing more. And meanwhile, we'll also be at least feeding in, the stats and all that kind of stuff. And we do all the rewards and everything on chain. None of that's centralized, but the actual gameplay, we're moving a little bit more towards a centralized system just because of the real time nature.
Yeah, and I think that's like it comes down to like, the question is, well, what should be on chain? Well, things should be on chain that like need to be, very like, need trustlessness. And so let's take a game like poker. Well, you could have like poker is a game that like all the logic could be there. Real, it's real like scale block times are fast enough to have really good, poker on fully on chain game. But the deal and who has what and who plays what, like that's really important in terms of like determining where the money goes and that type of skill game. But then you have a game like where a bunch of people are battling and fighting each other. Well, it's pretty clear you can see who won, and you can publish the game logic, you can publish the results, you can publish actions that at some point not every single move needs to be on chain. But I think the trend is like getting things that matter on chain or posting them after the fact or settling them, like you said, so they can be utilized for more hooks, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think like what a blockchain also offers, which in theory a database also offers, but like developers are never going to prioritize it, is this like open API of data around the players in the game and stuff like that too, right? Like, so in theory you can do that with a Web2 game. Publishers are never going to be incentivized to do it, but if you start there and you're always doing it, then you offer this like rich set of data for new things to build. It's kind of the open source ideology.
Yep. Awesome. Any other thoughts on Unchained Gaming from anyone?
I can speak a little bit to how Block Brawlers kind of uses that, because a significant portion of the battle and the actual game data is actually stored on chain. I can tell you, we've had some players, you go into a match. I don't know who here has actually played a Block Brawlers match, but you go into a match and you think for sure, like, you have the best setup, you are going to win this battle, they have no chance, and you end up losing. Well, some people don't actually like that, but fortunately, all of that stuff is logged. Obviously, there is some RNG that happens in the background to determine the outcome of the fight. But, if you feel like, hey, I've been ripped off, or just kind of speaking to that kind of gaming or gambling aspect, the trustlessness that's necessary, you can go look at the block on chain and actually see every single move. As of right now, you can see every single move. Which Block Brawlers NFT did the move, how much damage it did, and what the fight result was after every single round. So
Awesome.
Interesting things you can do with that data.
Very cool. Fabio, Sawyer, any thoughts on that before we move on?
Yeah, just some outlooks which I'm excited about on chain gaming. Given one possibility with the DAO structure, like building clans, and that they're kind of, because we already have like a game coming, which has actually something implemented like that, so that actually clans are DAOs and they vote on chain what's going to happen next. I think that's super interesting, given the possibilities there. Also, yeah, I mean that's one part, obviously, which everyone should be excited. I think that's a big thing. On other thing which I personally would like to see is that snapshots of a gameplay can actually be stored on chain and then minted as an NFT and then sold on a marketplace. I mean, everyone knows there are sometimes some fun moments in games, or some wins or whatever, hits, kills, whatever. And if you could actually use those snapshots or those moments and mint that as an NFT and sell it afterwards, why not, right? Because players, they can actually then monetize their gameplays.
Awesome. Okay. All right. So I'm gonna pop over. We're gonna answer a couple community questions, and then then close it. And I've got a couple last questions for everybody. Sound good? All right. So first one from Scalina. When will we see the implementation of Scale on-chain voting? Well, so I've got good and bad news. The good news is that the reason why it's taking so long is because it's a decentralized project. And it's not a centralized group that's just saying, hey, here's the voting, let's launch it, let's deploy it. The bad news is that it's taking a little while longer than we would have all wanted, because when you've got to get a lot of people involved in a process that process has to do with governance, then it just takes a lot of alignment. And so it's not something to be taken lightly. It's something that so one thing I have I'm doing everything I can to help cultivate and move the ball forward, while not, you know, you know, me as a founder, I don't want to be too overbearing as to how things should work and what they should be. Um, and it's really, governance is an absolute critical linchpin, in my opinion, to making a decentralized project function. I think Ethereum doesn't need it because they just were kind of like first to market and have this weird but somehow viable way of coming to agreement on things through from a developer perspective. And it's not fully egalitarian and fair or transparent, because a lot of it happens at magicians meetups and in ETH research forums and Discord chats behind the scenes. But they have something that works. But if you're an Ethereum scaling blockchain like Scale is, Scale's built on Ethereum but also has an adjacent separate network. We started later, and so having on-chain voting, I think, is a huge value, because it brings guaranteed transparency to key decisions. And so there's some people that will be submitting. There's a lot of talk, lots of conversations happening in a similar way they happen with Ethereum, but I'm pushing to see a forum post, to get kind of like some of these consolidated thoughts out there, and then get the first vote going, and get that vote going, and then just get the thing launched. And I think we also don't want perfect to be enemy of the good. And that, in our case, perfect is we're using a scale chain and we've spent all this time and effort and have this perfect voting mechanism that gives every developer the same voice as a big institutional fund that bought a bunch of Scale. And it all happens gas free on, compared to the imperfect is, hey, we take something that works and functions that seems to be really stable for proof of stake governance. We implement it, and it's on the Ethereum mainnet where the Scale token exists. And we use Snapshot or something, so there's no gas fees. But it's not perfect, and we can grow to being perfect, but I think we need a good starting point. That's my personal feeling. That's the feeling I've heard from the validators I've spoken with, the developer community I've spoken with, is let's take baby steps. Let's not paint ourselves any corners, and let's start small in scope and then grow and keep things simple. We got to kiss it. So excited to see that come together, and it's a group effort, but it takes a while because, by nature of being decentralized, it needs a lot of hands pushing the ball forward. Any thoughts on that from the group here on governance and voting?
Yeah, I can hop in real quick. I'll just say that it's as a community member, I've seen it mentioned quite a bit from other community members, and for at least since June, since kind of V2, it's been something that's been heavily requested. And I'll just say that if it's something that other community members are interested in and they're asking for, get involved in the conversation. Don't just sit there and be quiet. It really is a community effort for governance and how to go about implementing it. And the more people that can just kind of put their ideas up now, the more that can be implemented in a truly decentralized manner out of the gate, as opposed to just being guided by a couple of people. So there's no real answers when it comes to kind of a community decision.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. A question from Michael. Thank you, Michael. What are the tech improvements planned for the coming year? So what I'll say is, I think, one, we've hit this amazing milestone where there's 18 EVM chains on Scale that are all effectively shards of a big blockchain system. Okay. So we've got one big scaling blockchain that's connected to Ethereum that has all of these other pieces that are really, at the end of the day, independent EVM chains, even though they're connected in terms of validator sets and security mechanisms. Okay, so we've got amazing tech, and it's interesting because finally that narrative is starting to grow. Other people are saying, "Oh, well, modular blockchains can scale. You can scale not just by stacking things on top of a blockchain. You can actually have lots of chains, and if they're part of a system, then that system can grow just like, a sharded database can grow. And so we have that. That's really great. But there are other things that are cool. And I took my sweater off, my Christmas sweater, because it was hot. And I just randomly was wearing this shirt. Another teaser alert for those of you. But I want to say there are ZK initiatives being worked on. Scale is decentralized. So it's not like traditional, like, hey, product has done this thing and issued this spec and PRD, and then this thing's going to be shipped in these next 3 sprints. So there needs to be alignment gathered around the implementation. But I'm pushing. I would love to see the community give some sort of announcement to say that Scale is going to be a piece of the tool set. It's almost like we have an arsenal, and it doesn't take away from anything else we've done. We're just adding a configurable option. And you think about it, I think it's like a golf set. It's like, we've got all these clubs. Well, do we want another one that does something different than the other ones that people could use when they want? It's like, yeah, let's do it. It doesn't mean the other product isn't good or the other clubs aren't good. So that to me is something I'm most excited about. And I think, you'll be seeing announcements soon. I want to open up to the rest of the group. Any other things that I'd say that are coming on, that you see coming that on Scale, or you want to see come, or coming more specifically in your applications?
Well, I would love to see risk zero support in the ZK implementation. I think that's something that's the community's been missing in a lot of the other chains going after ZK EVM. It's like, that's the boring stuff. The exciting stuff is when you could do arbitrary compute on the ZK stuff. I think that's exciting. Anyway, feature request.
Yeah, and I think the way that am I frozen?
Jack is frozen for me, but
am I back?
You think he's back?
Yep.
Yeah. There's this iOS bug, or like Apple bug, that I have to turn the my Bluetooth off for some reason in the office. Like this week, there's some kind of like weird thing in like new iOS. So anyways, just wanted to say, yeah, I agree, Topper. And I think ZK, I think a lot of people think it's this like silver bullet, but if implemented, it's an amazing technology, but if implemented the wrong way, it's not cost effective and it's way too slow. Even if you could get like a gazillion transactions into each batch, well, if each batch takes a day and your latency is that extremely high, and the cost of processing that is high, even if the cost per transaction is low, it's just like, it's kind of like, you could almost think of it as like shipping containers. And you just have a much bigger shipping container, but if it gets really big and then it's weighted down and it just takes longer to get there, like, yeah, you brought a lot over, but it would have been faster to do it more rapidly and try to build other trust guarantees. So the implementation we're looking at is one that uses ZK as almost an optimistic or lazy sense that enables ZK proofs to be leveraged in addition to escrows and other efforts to call back bad actors, as opposed to need to so it's more of an optimistic element with thresholds, as opposed to every single thing will be ZK and pushed to the mainnet for every transaction, because it's just really difficult to, in any practical sense, to make that happen in a cost-effective, timely manner.
Yeah, for sure. It's still very new and still evolving too. I guess we're not even totally sure of all the security guarantees behind all the math yet, right?
Yeah. And also, it's like, if the goal is just to create the best enterprise software that runs in a black box that processes things, it's kind of like that a company runs and gets a cut of. It's like not really in the spirit of blockchain, or I think doesn't, you start breaking other boundaries of the trilemma in terms of decentralization that are too much. And so it's I think a lot of people, there's been a lot of hype around ZK. And we thankfully at Scale have been able to, one, build really great infrastructure, and then two, be able to observe what's working in ZK and see things that are open source and see what is successful, which has been the plan all along, and then be able to cherry pick the things that work that are going to add the most value to the game builders, the game players, the Web3 builders, the Web3 users that are all on Scale.
Yeah, I think Dark Forest showed that there's like a whole genre of games that is unexplored around using zero knowledge proofs too, which I think is going to be exciting once this stuff becomes a little more mainstream too.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Sawyer, can you talk about any sort of tech improvements you want to see happen or that you think are going to come forward over the next year, especially as it relates to user experience and kind of chain interoperability, Metaport, Calypso? You're probably elbows deep in this more than anybody else. Would love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very broad topic. I think there's a lot of different ways to go about it, but I think the biggest things that we're gonna hopefully see kind of moving forward with Metaport and user experience and just kind of using Scale in general is going to be just easier. There's going to be less steps, less clicks, and I think alluding back to what Hopper was talking about earlier, with like the Reddit kind of usage of Web3, it's going to feel less like Web3, which is in a good way. It's just going to be simpler for kind of the average person who might not be, super Web3 native or, understanding all the technology. It's just going to be a lot easier for them to get started with Scale. And then the same things that are going to improve kind of the initial onboarding are also going to kind of just automatically improve some of the chain interoperability, where you're kind of moving between Scale chains and doing things all across the Scaleverse without actually realizing that you're moving chains. It's just kind of going to start natural process and hopefully progression that will just make it better for not just users, but also for developers, giving them more resource and utility. So it's kind of hopefully going to be a dual-sided positive for everybody.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, so at the core team, we all have to have Scale's made up of a lot of teams, that's why we have this group here today. And this is just a small, grab. There's so many teams building, supporting, and contributing, and we're going to start seeing it just really take off, seeing that kind of decentralized value in terms of just the more and more builders that are help push the machine forward. But from the core team, we need to have some like mantras that we push for. And the last year was really the team was pushing for, getting to this point of stability. We needed the foundation. We needed to get to a place where we could have 30 million transactions. And that really, you saw that come into play in June, and you just have seen that continuing to grow. This next year is about two things for me, and it's about one, scaling Scale. Okay. So we had 30 million transactions, but when are we going to get to 30 million transactions? Not in 6 months, but every month. When will we get to 100 million transactions in a month? And I think a lot of people out there don't value transactions. And users, they say, yeah, it's all about TVL, because the prior use cases in the market was about, winning the business of those 20,000 wallets that had, we're going to be trading the most, ETH assets, right? And that to me is not where the future is. The future is about new users and having something that can scale in a cost-effective, sustainable manner. And so that's so that's one piece of it. The other piece is user experience. So we've got to scale. Well, the way we do that, the tech's there, but now the UX has to be there. And so it's all like UX. Everything needs to be about UX. It needs to be easy. Who cares if you have zero gas fees if it's not easy for people to onboard and start playing, start using applications. And so I bring up Topper all the time, and what you guys have done just to let people plug in, not even have to switch RPC port, start playing, feel like they're on the mainnet, things like that, right? And so, and that, it kind of, as they say, it takes a village. So I think there's a lot of people, the core team, but there's a lot of people in every project that are helping move the ball forward. And the cool thing is a lot of EVM projects are just, me too. They're like, oh, we have EVM also, and ours isn't full yet, so you can use ours, and the gas fees will still be low. And Scale's not a Me Too project. We literally have zero gas fees for end users, fees paid in another way. But it's, with that also brings new challenges and new opportunities. So I think it'll be fun to see the community like really dial in on that. But you'll hear me pushing UX, UX, UX. That's my, people are gonna be tired of hearing that from me if I do my job right.
Easy bridges of value from other cheap chains. That's my other feature request.
Yeah, that's what I actually think that there's two things to be said there, and I'd love to hear everyone's thoughts. One is I don't see ecosystems like BNB chain as competitive to Scale. I think there's just a massive amount of users there and assets, and people that are building games should be thinking, whoa, how can I build on Scale and then cater to all those users on BNB chain? Get them over, just like CryptoBlades did. CryptoBlades went live and on Scale, and they just opened the bridge from BNB. The first 2 days, there were, I think, 15,000 users and 92,000 NFTs bridged over from BNB chain. And it was like, whoa, that was amazing. And we took a lot of bloat off their chain that was causing other transactions to be high, and let the gameplay happen on Scale. It ended up being a good, I think a positive thing for them as well. The other piece of this are NFTs on the mainnet. There's so many valuable NFT sets that, and the thing is, a lot of the NFTs are kind of lacking utility. And so you talk to them, and like, these people that have these NFTs, they want to make more utility and value for their NFTs. They want their NFTs to be able to do more. Well, the cool thing is these NFTs don't have to be bridged over to Scale. Scale Oracle on each chain, like on Nebula or on the Crypto Rome chain or the Brawl chain, literally could, have a top NFT project deploy a game on Scale, and the users would never even have to bridge their NFT over to use it and play. The Scale Oracle can just look and say, yes, this address still has this, ape or, or Meebit or Creep or whatever it is, and be able to use that in a gameplay. So kind of curious from that piece of everybody here, do you think, we're going to see that happen over the next year in Scale, where we actually let people play games with NFTs that are on different chains that don't bridge over?
Yeah, I don't see why not. I think that's one of the coolest parts about each individual Scale chain is the flexibility available to every developer and project building is incredibly dynamic, to the point where, right now that can be done, like you said, through the Scale Oracle, but because everything is effectively, a dApp chain in the sense of it's the project's own chain. If they're looking to utilize, for example, the same way CryptoBlades did, their own bridge to another network, or their own Oracle solution to another network to utilize assets or information to feed into a Scale chain to then facilitate the heavy throughput, they can do that because it's their own Scale chain, right? And so I think the flexibility and the growth there and the opportunity we're going to hopefully continue to see moving into next year, and see a lot more variability there.
Awesome. Okay, we've got a question from, this is from Pascal Luvenik. Thank you, Pascal. So in relation to Scale stats, why was there a transition from 20 chains to 18? And why is it the active users, transactions, and gas fees are down compared to November? The community wants to know. Great question. And so, number one, there were Scale chains that were built, that were up and running, that were, for a lot of them, some of them were just being used for testing. And so there needed to be a pruning to get those off, because the reality is they're taking up space in the network. And the other thing is, we've also had some projects that, that were smaller, that realized, hey, they didn't want to have to be in a position when their grant ended and the on-chain voting came together to finalize the chain pricing. They didn't want to have to pay for a chain all on their own. And so they actually to a community chain. And so we had two different dApp partners move to a community chain, which I think was a great idea for them. Because somebody has to pay for these chains, right? There's a revenue model, and the value, they buy Scale tokens, they stake it to the network to pay, and those tokens pay validators and delegators. And so that's the reason for that. The other thing is Xord decided to move over back to a Scale test chain from mainnet, because they're experimenting with more optimization techniques. So they're breaking things both on IPFS and Scale. They're putting through absolutely massive throughput. My understanding is they're still doing, like, with all of the users using the system, they just pointed back to a other chain, and they're still doing millions and millions of transactions. And they'll move that back over to mainnet soon, I hope. But the nice thing about them is they're just really proving what a Scale chain can do. And they push the chain so hard, and they push IPFS so hard that they found limits, and they realized they had to optimize things, and it pushed Scale beyond what any other blockchain has ever been pushed to do before, or EVM chain. So I think any blockchain, to my understanding there. So you'll see them come back live. There's also some other partners we're really excited about, and we're pumped about transaction volume and users, but that's the skinny there. So great question. All right, so here's one for the group. This is from Michael. What are the most competitive features that Scale offers to the Web3 gaming ecosystem? Now, we've already talked about a lot of this, but anybody want to take a cut at summarizing that question from Michael from Twitter? What makes Scale really competitive? Topper, you're up first.
All right. Yeah, I mean, I was already going through this with on different spaces earlier today. I mean, for us, we had a bunch of problems on our previous chain. Rollbacks, really big problem, especially for games. It's like if the history can change, that's no good. And then also the idea that whenever there's a price movement and everything's on the same chain, and then DeFi bots just swamp a chain, right? Because like any sort of value that they can get out of that 10% price move is going to be like massive. And so they just take all the block space, starting, as soon as that price action happens, and takes often a very long time. So, I mean, we were ready to build our like next step in our game, but we couldn't figure out the tech side of it. Like in terms of how are we actually going to make this like a fun game with low latency, not have these rollbacks and stuff like that too. And that's when we were looking at options, and that's when Jack, you and I started talking. And so like to me, it's just like it clearly solved a whole bunch of our problems, and so to me that's how it's it continues to be competitive. And I think it's the only chain now where you can really offer your users this sort of like free experience in a productionized way. Like, we do pay for some transactions in the classic game on Polygon. It's unsustainable. And I think this sort of like, and the relay tech is complicated. And Scale just makes it all simpler and like easier to get going.
Awesome. Chris, any thoughts?
Yeah, just to really piggyback off what Topper said, it's kind of the same experience. Obviously, I'm coming more from a gamer's perspective here, but the fact that there are no transaction fees. I've been playing blockchain games as long as they've existed, essentially, and I've seen it become a problem. I think we can all remember, obviously Ethereum mainnet, some of the fees got outrageous at certain points, and just as Topper was saying, if the market decides to move a certain way, there are some other chains, some other alternatives that are like, hey, this works great, until it doesn't, because the market has shifted, and all of a sudden something that was essentially free is not free. And that is hugely discouraging as a player, to know that you're going to kind of just, especially if the player is paying those fees up front. It's very discouraging to know that like, hey, I can play, but I'm actually going to be losing tokens as I'm playing. So really, like I said, I'm kind of biased from the gamer's perspective. I love the all of the scale tech, but the fees are the largest thing. I think that's really what the breakthrough is going to come for here with blockchain gaming. It's 100% necessary that users are not paying those fees while they're playing.
On our classic game, we actually have a Discord thing that when it gets outrageous, it says the gas is too damn high and just pauses the whole game. Actually,
It's a nice feature.
That's funny. Okay, awesome. Okay, a few more questions here. We'll just do two more. So number one, first one, Thomas. Basically a question, and we don't talk about price and stuff, but I think it's an important macro thing to talk about. So, is the bear market a cause of concern for Scale's viability in the long run? So one, I would just say Scale is a proof of stake network. Okay, so we, the way validators get paid is by securing the network and running validator nodes. The way security works is all through a staking mechanism. I think we are in an incredibly strong position as a network to essentially weather the winter, especially given all of the great builders building stuff. Like there's just so much happening here. This ecosystem's popping, and I think we're healthy. We've got healthy validators from a foundation perspective, and the treasury's healthy. From a core team perspective, we've got no issues for we've got funding for over a year to finance all the people on the core team that are here working hard 80 hours a week to try to make Scale successful and bring the community forward. And so we're in a really, I think, thankfully, a great position, and we just need to help. It's time to just ship things to the next level, scale the UX, okay, and really help our partners. I think it's all about making the dApps winners, and that's the hard part, is that there's not as many people playing. If you look at numbers across the board, there's not people right now. There's not as many people buying NFTs and selling NFTs. But you know what? This is, I think, common and expected, and it's also a time to grow and build new things, because during these crazy times, it's like you feel like emotionally you don't have time to go do that thing that's going to take a little bit longer, but will give you better long-term results. And I'm sure, Topper, you're seeing that, and you kind of feel like you have a little more room to maybe explore your scope of what you do. Sawyer, you're probably seeing that across all the projects you work with and the things you're working on. And Chris, I know you're expanding to now do all sorts of things. So anyways, would love to hear other people's thoughts. I'm feeling like it's a good clean out. We had to clean out some crap in the industry. It's now time to build, and we're in a great spot. But
yeah, I mean, I was saying this earlier. I think in the bear market, I'm not sure that we would have spent as much time trying to figure out to study what's working outside of the blockchain market, and look at future trends and understand okay, how can we break out of just being Web3 game and be just game? And I think in a bull market, you're not incentivized to do that. But now we are, and I think that's how real use cases get discovered in blockchain. It's how it's happened every cycle, right? So the new bull is always driven by some new use case for people that sparks it all again.
yeah, awesome. Any other thoughts? Anyone else? No pressure to answer if you don't have anything.
I think that was honestly, I think what Topper said was very well said, but it's kind of it's just making me think. Same deal. It's really innovation through adversity. I mean, this is how we see the next big steps taken in this technology. I've been involved for many years, and this is how each cycle's gone. So the teams that are here building and doing things now are the ones that are going to come out on top as time progresses. So that's why I'm spending a lot of time playing Scale games.
Awesome. Okay, last question. Each person, this came in late. Each person, give me one audacious goal for the Scale ecosystem for 2023.
Should I start? I start. Good question. I mean, obviously, from a foundation perspective, I would love to see. I would love to see 30 applications going live in Q1. That would be my goal, with over 25 million transactions per month. So that's what I think could happen. I mean, according to the numbers we've seen so far.
That's Fabio's personal opinion, by the way. That is not advice forward.
That is no advice. That's just my opinion.
Fabio's
obviously,
individual. Awesome.
Yeah, but I mean, that's a goal. So yeah.
Crazy audacious goal for the year for the ecosystem.
I mean, we need to start there.
Topper?
Exciting year.
I'll go a game with 100,000 daily active users.
I like that. I like it. That's a good goal.
I'd like to see really, when people think blockchain gaming, I'd like to see Scale become the de facto home of gaming when it comes to blockchain. There's still, coming from the traditional gaming world, there's still such a stigma against blockchain and NFTs. I mean, we saw Valve ban NFTs on Steam, those type of things, but people are so, they're against it. They don't. I think it's just an issue of education. You have the right tools and the right people building here on Scale. So it just takes a little time. People need to be patient. I think Scale can reach that goal, but it's my ambitious thing I'd like to see. Just, somebody says blockchain gaming, people think, oh, I do that on Scale.
I guess I'm up last. I think it's not really outrageous, but the biggest thing that I'm looking forward to is just seeing more community collaboration between projects on not just the hubs, but just in general on Scale, as Fabio alluded to, with more projects potentially coming live in the future, them combining with, existing really awesome projects like Crypto Coliseum and Block Brawlers. Just really excited and hopefully going to see a lot more collaboration, which will hopefully create a lot of the interoperability and just kind of asset variability and dynamicness that we've kind of been talking about for the past hour or so here. So that's kind of the big thing I'm looking forward to.
Awesome. I'll give you kind of it's not what I would say would be a number one goal, but this is like one of these goals that if this happened, it'd be, a lot of good stuff's happening. It would be that people start comparing the individual Scale chains just like they're, with other major L1s. And they're like giving data and stats on Calypso and on Rome and on Nebula and Titan, which is the name of the community chain. And, people are like, talking about like the metrics on these chains, like all the stuff happening on these hubs where we have shared chains where you have like lots of games playing, and people are like not even saying that it's Scale. And then you're like, because that's what infrastructure is all about. Infrastructure is about like supporting growth and initiatives and being at the base. And if you've done that to the point that people are like comparing the output, then I think it's a good sign that you're working successfully as an infrastructure project. So, and that, and end users don't necessarily all need to know about you. They're just using you, just like AWS, right? So that would be, I think I'd love to start seeing some of these chains break out and be, talked about. Like they're like Phantoms, the DeFi chain, like Europa. And, you start seeing like, Europa being compared to, individually in the DeFi world would be cool as an example. Okay. All right, everybody. It's been really fun. For those of you listening, we, appreciate you, wish you happy holidays, happy new year, get out there, have a good time. These are the dark days of winter, but not for the builders. Definitely, obviously, like it's a painful time for everybody in terms of when you're, looking at the market. But you know, from a builder's perspective, it's like, now this is when we go. This is when you earn your keep as a builder. Is, you know, you gotta grit and push through and do cool stuff. So so excited about what will come in 2023. All right, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Happy holidays.